have to say, wow. You've set the bar very high, and I hope that I do not disappoint here. I also would like to give my thanks to everyone who's here this early in the morning on your second day, after probably sort of a late night with all the orange shirts out there, and my apologies to the Dutch. Sort of. We were going to beat you anyway on Sundays. Better now than later. No, just kidding. I'd like to thank the organization and also Christy and Chris. I haven't seen him. I don't know if he's here, but thank you for inviting me. It's an honor, and it's truly an honor to be here. And I appreciate all of the organization and Tatiana. Wow, what patience this woman has. Right? She answers every email immediately. So thank you very much as well. Special thanks to you. So let's just get started. I'm going to make a confession before I start. Anna did the same thing. Anna and I were talking. We were asked to send in a title fairly early on after we accepted. So I came up with this title. And then you never asked us to actually give you an abstract on what we're going to talk about. Right? Because that sort of orients you. And so when I actually sat down with this title, I'm like, what were you thinking when you wrote this? So this is going to be a more philosophical talk than practical. I'm going to show a few examples, but I'm going to talk more about where this title actually took me, thinking about the conference itself and who I was talking to. Okay, so let's just jump right in. So let's try to imagine the future. Let's say we have a young student of about 12 now. Let's try to imagine her in 2045. Okay, so as you can see, I did take this philosophical bit quite seriously. I tried to come up with and find future predictions of what education is going to look like and what people will need to know, what competences they will need to know for this young girl who's 12 now, in 2045. And I found, I searched with 3 different sources, right? So I'm going to present each of these sources individually. The first one, the Futuristic Education Panorama in 21 Years, 2045, version 1. Okay, what do we have? We have online, I was reading online and hybrid, online and hybrid formats. So technology, it's going to enhance the classroom with all kinds of different ways. Self-guided, these are terms that we're already hearing now, and we've heard in this conference. Some experts even predict the demise of physical buildings. Okay, yeah. So personalized learning, also hearing a lot about this. Personalized learning is out there. School curriculums will be unbundled from a physical institution, especially if they disappear. They have to be unbundled, right? That happens. Interdisciplinary. We're already starting to see a little bit of this in higher ed, I think. You have some bundling of modules. Bespoke curriculums, all supported by e-learning platforms. So I'm not that surprised in that one. Equity of access. And this came up in Anna's talk yesterday. Internet access will be universal rights, breaking down these barriers to education. Greater democratization of access, more flexibility in training, which inevitably leads to more lifelong learning. Again, referring back to Anna's talk yesterday. Different learning priorities. Social and emotional learning, SEL, and I've seen it here already. So students will be able to thrive. Skills of creativity, collaboration, communication, problem solving. All of these terms that we've been hearing, they're going to be embedded according to version 1 of predictions in 21 years. Focus on building and maintaining relationships and community. And I've put in person, because we're not talking about community online, we're talking about actually learning how to relearn, maybe, how to connect and communicate in person, which we saw. I don't know if you've noticed, but people talk about generation post-pandemic students who have some trouble socializing in person. So not just online community building, but also looking into maintaining in-person relationships. And the tolerating ambiguity and rapid change, yes. I mean, each time things are changing, we've got to be flexible thinkers. New methods of responding to society. So everyone, this one goes for the first one, right? And the one prior to that. Different methods of responding to different social upheavals, really. We see this every day. We're seeing this with, should we lower the blinds? We'll see the pandemic was a wonderful example of that. We're seeing that with some shifts in politics that are creating quite a bit of chaos. So education will look at how to best prepare young people for different political and social world. And enhanced immersive learning, and Christy just mentioned my own interest in this, but it will be, the prediction will be mainstream, learning through AR, VR, 3D printers will be replacing the pencils and papers, and that always sounds really glorious, doesn't it? I can't wait. I don't plan on being a teacher, 21 years, but second panorama, different sources, okay? We have more here. Some are similar, immersive and learning environments. Again, VR, AR, talk about holographic teachers in the classroom, okay? Which is quite interesting, and everything being geographically distanced through immersive, high and low immersive environments. AI-powered personalized learning. You were waiting for me to get to this one, right? Because it had to be there. Working, analyzing students' performance. I find that kind of big brotherish. Not so sure I'm real keen on this idea. Oops. But the prediction is that it will be for the good of the students to be analyzing their data constantly to help them performance. I'm an extra that one. But global classroom networks. This came yesterday in talk by Cara. There, already looking at how telecollaboration, virtual exchange is interconnected in the world. It also came up with Anna. So it's not unusual that this is predictions of 20 years from now, that there will be a lot more connections across the world geographically enhanced through technology. But this is also, there's talk about a global digital curriculum, which is perhaps a bit more surprising, because usually virtual exchange, you try to find one thing you have in common that you're going to work on. I work with someone. I've been doing virtual exchange, telecollaboration, what do you call it, for 21 years, and we have the same curriculum. So we, even though we're in two different universities and two different levels, we do the exact same thing. So that's just a small example of how this might spread. Smart learning spaces, yeah. Classrooms, smart classrooms. Obviously goes with analyzing students' data, okay? Wearable haptic devices, people will be, they'll be monitoring students' physical and cognitive states. Again, I find it a bit brotherish, big brotherish, okay? But aim to tailor to educational experiences. Hopefully that's what it's used for if it does happen. Enhanced multimodal learning, multisensory. So we're already talking about haptic devices. We're already talking about AR and VR, immersive, high and low immersive. But the predictions are that there will be not only auditory, visual, kinesthetic, which do exist. You can wear gloves to touch things now. When you're wearing the glasses, and so you can feel things. Talking about olfactory senses as well. I personally could do without that one because I have a sensitive stomach, and there's certain topics in biology I do not know about through my nose, right? But like I say, really there. Learning systems have biometric feedback and content delivery dynamically delivered. So wow, wonderful predictions. Flexible and lifelong learning, already here. so it's probably not that unusual that it's coming up. Talking about credentials, I'm looking at Anna again. This idea of getting recognition for what you're doing in your lifelong learning with specific skills and competencies. Sustainable and inclusive education. So I'm looking at everyone here, right? Because this is what this whole conference is about. The idea, again, that schools will be completely green goes a little bit against the other predictions in version 1 where schools disappear. But of course, if they disappear, then they have to be green. So maybe. Education will be universally designed, adapted to everyone's abilities, and so be equal access to opportunities. And gamification, we haven't mentioned this yet, but I know, it hasn't come up in the keynotes, but it's there and it's here also in this conference. The idea that sophisticated educational games will become mainstream, right? So that was version 2. Okay, version 3, predictions. Bionic enhanced learning. Special implanted chips that gives knowledge. I switch my thoughts to maths, I can understand practice, so I don't need to learn, right? I just think it, the switch is there, right? Bionic learning. Holographic tools, we have holographic teachers in the other prediction. Prediction version 3, we have holographic books, dances, talk, sing, dance, okay? Sparkle, if you do right, sparkle, okay? Adventure capsules, special capsules that take you on field trips, okay? Yeah, so, immersive, not just high immersive reality, high core immersive reality. So you can go visit the stars, the planets, the dinosaurs, okay? Avatar teachers. Yes, we saw this, but because they're holographic and avatar, they don't have to be the form of a human. Who says teachers have to be human, right? We're gonna have dolphins taking us to teach us about marine science. Why? We're motivating to have the little animal talking to you instead of Mr. Owl and Mr. Dolphin. And the final one, quest-based learning. No teachers will have a Grandmaster Wizard, right, to guide us through our quest once a week. Okay, so these are the 3 versions, and you're thinking, yes, but who are the sources? And I didn't tell you that on purpose. Okay, so version 1. Let's see who thinks they know what could have been the source of version 1. No guesses? Academic experts. So I compiled visions from a lot of different academic experts. What are the visions? We recognized a lot of what's coming down the tube here, right? The second version, artificial ChatGPT. It was a little bit out there, but gave more options than the different versions, but I find it interesting because it will spew it out there. Huh? I had to even cut down on some of them just for time. So it had no problems just spewing out predictions. And you may have guessed version 3, 12-year-olds. So the avatar dolphins, holographic avatar dolphins, the space capsules. So this is how they imagine, because for 12-year-old, 21 years, it might as well be 200 years, right? So these are different predictions for 2045. But of course they're predictions, they're mostly based on historical, but because they're predictions and warning your own predictions, accept at your own risk, they are mostly based on lived experiences. That's how we make predictions, and that's why I think that we could recognize some of the things that were happening, some of the things that were predicted. We're saying, yeah, okay, yeah, I've seen that, I can see that happening. We're already experiencing it here a little bit. I can see it on a wider scale. So where do I want to go with this? I told you, I warned you that it was philosophical today. What are some of the commonalities that we can see in these predictions? We can see integration of technology. It's there, we can't ignore it, and it's just going to keep advancing. So VR, AR, AI, ooh, that's everywhere. The Internet of Things, 3D printing, all of this, holograms, space capsules, maybe not. But technology itself, it's here to stay. It's going to become an integrated part of our learning. Blended and self-guided learning, this was a commonality amongst all of them. So again, it's going to come true, right? Global and interconnected learning, we're seeing this happening. As we speak, we're seeing it, the keynote yesterday was a wonderful example of this type of global collaboration. Sorry. Personalization and adaptation. Yeah, I mean, there's some, maybe this is a little bit more minor at this point, as it's hard. If you have classes where you have 35, 40 students, it's really hard to do individualized learning, but it's having gamification. I've seen it on the program here. So gamification, yes, it's been around for some time now, and it's just going to keep working with the technology to become more and more mainstream. And of course, lifelong learning and skills development. Again, I'm looking back at Anna with her wonderful presentation about these possibilities. Okay, so how realistic is it that in 2045 these are actually happening? So again, I told Kata and Anna, yes, I said, you left me nothing to talk about. Okay, so everything's already been talked about yesterday. I promise I wrote my talk before they came and talked. Internet access, Anna talked about this. 67%, according to Statista report of 2024, 67% of the global population has internet access. But of course, I cannot find, because I didn't pay for it, maybe if I paid for it, I refuse them. It might have gone into more of the glossing of the quality of internet access, because that's quite high, 67%. But as Anna pointed out, it's not all the same. As you pointed out, in rural Spain, there are areas that don't have it. When I go to visit my parents in Appalachia, North Carolina, the internet access is spotty at best compared to where I live in Barcelona now. So we don't have any real statistics. So that means that 33% of the global population is still without access to internet. And of course, money question, as I indicated yesterday, is a key part of this as well, right? So we have access to education. According to UNESCO, 84% of the world's population has access to primary and secondary education. Access doesn't mean that they are completing school, but has access, which, as UNESCO pointed out in the report, is an improvement over the last 50 years. It's a considerable improvement, but there's still a lot to go. 16% of children and youth worldwide are not attending school. That is 1 out of 10 primary children. Primary age, not in school, 1 out of 10. It's a lot for world population. So the idea of equity in 21 years of education, we can be hopeful. Is it realistic about having technology, all those smart classrooms across the world in 21 years? I'm just going to show you some money. It's for me, it's overwhelming to look at this amount of money being spent on immersive technology, which I am a keen fan of. I love it. But 2022, there was 5.3 billion. I can't run around this amount of money invested in educational immersive technology. Educational, not talking about leadership, educational immersive technology. 2023, 6.9 billion in 1 year. Predictions for 2032, that's not even 2045, because I didn't find any predictions for 2045. $40 billion in investment. But does that mean it's going to the schools? No. this picture, this wonderful picture you have here, this is a picture of a class in Catalonia, zero budget. This is me dragging my headsets in a suitcase to this high-risk population school outside of Barcelona. When I say high risk, it's a lot of students who that leave school early, a lot of immigration population. So yeah, the money is not going to equity. We know who's got the AR and the VR. I was just in Carnegie Mellon at a conference, and just I was salivating. I was drooling at everything they had access to. We know where this investment is going. It's not going to the margins in the minority schools in different areas. That's a lot of investment. They're not working with teachers to know what they need. They're creating and then expecting us to consume. So, will we have equal access to technology and immersive classrooms in 21 years? Sure. Is it realistic in 2045 to predict all of this? 100% smart schools or no fiscal schools at all? I particularly do not think so. More than anything, primary ed schools cannot disappear because parents need somewhere to put their kids. Yes. Yeah, they need part of them. So they need, I don't think that's going to disappear. Equity in educational opportunities and access. I've just shown the data that I think kind of points in a different direction. Completely personalized learning curricula. I find that a little bit complicated to achieve in 21 years. Cutting edge technology in all classrooms. I just gave you my arguments for it not being there. And it sounds really pessimistic, doesn't it? Yes. And it's not a good way to start the morning. But times are changing. And there is a need to transform education. There is a need to prepare students for 21st century workplace. Global financing, which Anna mentioned, this is going to have to be there. So you're all thinking, as you rightfully should be saying, yes, but, right, sounds good. Mentally, we all agree. But how, what, when, how, why, where, right? Very good question. I'm going to provide some potential action points that I think that we should all take into consideration. I think we need to embrace technology integration with digital literacy. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. How do I know that? Because this conference is full of people talking about this. Technology is here to stay, but it comes with responsibility to use and critical thinking. There's a need for what Steve Thorne and I called in 2018 in a white paper, techno-digital, techno-ethical competences. And Will Jones, McCleary, Herman, and Lebar. In this conference, we're talking about this very thing, and I'm sure other people are as well. There's some of the names that really caught my eye. We need to foster intercultural competence, and the keynote yesterday was talking about that. Both keynotes yesterday talked about this. We need to introduce learning projects that include intercultural exchange. It should not be a one-time thing. It should be integrated into how we're teaching. And there's a lot of talks in this conference that are on this very thing, apart from the keynote. But antes el fondo, Leonardo Valverde, Melinda Dooly, I'm always second to that name, my apologies. In this conference, so go listen to what they have to say about this. We need to prioritize critical thinking and problem solving across all subjects. So there's a lot of names that I feel can cover this area of critical thinking, project-based learning, inquiry-based learning, design-based learning. It's all about, as Bear and Bear here call it, mirroring real-world challenges, right? All of these development of pedagogical tools for critical thinking. I'm curious about that. the idea that we're going to actually have the technology, integrated technology, that's going to help us learn to think critically. So this is forward thinking, and this is wonderful stuff. So there's wonderful things going on right here in this very room and in this very conference. And promoting social and emotional learning. I could just have listed a long list here of everyone in this conference that is working on social and emotional learning. This is so important. And I've heard someone say, yes, students don't know that at post-pandemic, they don't know how to socialize anymore. So this needs to be a part of how we're teaching for the future. Teaching empathy. And I'm not going to try to pronounce this name. Where you are. Please go see this talk, because promoting teaching empathy, right? So we have lots of examples here in this very conference. Other potential action points: work to ensure equal access and equity. So looking how to do research on impact, that's important, because then we can go to the policymakers and say, you know, this does have an impact, it's worth financing, it's helping bridge gaps. So we need to work to ensure all of us, no matter what your field, prepare for technological and social change. And that's not just our students, it's ourselves, right? Who would think an old lady like me with white hair would be dragging a suitcase that comes up to here full of headsets to go play with virtual reality with fifth and sixth graders? I didn't know anything about headsets 5 years ago, but now I love it, right? Well, it's time to play in, and I know she's laughing as well, because it's scary at first, but then we've got to be prepared for these changes. And if we're not willing to embrace them, we can't convince our students to embrace them. And we can't then convince our students to be critical about them as well. So they need to also be critical. And I talked about this, and she's been talking about this since 2015. Finding resourceful ways to deal with low source environments. And there's a talk, I think it's today, on dealing with this very thing, because we assume here I am touting VR, and it's an expensive technology. Not everyone has access to this. So let's work also on seeing how we can start with low resource environments. We need to incorporate multiliteracies and multilingualism. This has also been mentioned here in this. This is very dear to my heart, because my research group is on plurilingual education. This idea of multimodalities, so that reaches a diversity of students, but we also need to be aware of the multiple lingual resources they're bringing to us. Just because they don't speak the language of the classroom, the vehicular language of the classroom, does not mean that they don't speak. And I've actually heard teachers say this, but they don't know how to, they in Spanish, they don't know how to speak, they don't know how to talk. I hear them talking. Yeah, but that's not real language, right? So embracing plurilingual resources and cultivating the mindset of, let me show the first, cultivating mindset of lifelong learning and adaptability. Encourage curiosity, and that's us as well, right? It's not just encouraging them. We've got to be curious about what's next, what's coming. Other fields, adaptability and diverse learning skills. And again, there are some talks in this conference, and I apologize to those of you who were talking about these talks that it didn't cite here. And I know that there are a lot more that could have been cited. So again, we're good, but how? So lofty aspirations, but who am I, this one individual, to try to transform education for future generations? It's just me. What can I possibly do, right? So I'm going to propose that maybe, again, this is my philosophical pathway that started with my title. Maybe in order to understand what's going to happen in the future, to understand if what we're doing now is having an impact in 20 years' time, we need to look 20 years back. What were we doing 20 years ago? and then we can have some sort of measure. It's not very scientific, I don't know. So it's going to be anecdotal. I can talk about my own experience. I can't talk about everybody else's. I can talk about my own. If you remember, I said predictions are based on lived experiences. So I'm going to take you back to the Museum of Ancient Technology and Education. One of the first projects, European projects I ever managed, I was the manager of, was one called McCall with the University of Utrecht. Right, we were talking about this yesterday. And it was a telecollaborative project in primary education, and it was between 2001 and 2005. So literally 20 years ago. What I'm going to show you, the artifacts hanging on the living wall, are taken from a chapter on this project, because I had absolutely no data left. Because at that time, trying to save data was really hard, and you had it in a huge USB that stopped working. So I've got, as the only artifacts that I have of this project are my memories and a chapter that was published on this project. So we had to build our own platform, okay? You here see an example here. This was a platform that brought together, you had to, for you young people, we had to use a modem to connect to internet and look it up as to what it is. Okay, my student was a modem. And we had to use a modem to wheel in the computer into the classroom, ring a telephone, right? Modem, okay, yes, I'm ancient. We created a platform that put together a wiki, blogs, text chat, audio, video chat. It was not even in the picture at the time. And we brought it all together. Oddly enough, we did not know that at that same time, across the globe in Australia, there was another group of researchers working on a similar platform. You may have heard of it, called Moodle. They became rich and famous. We didn't. Okay. So obviously PR was bad on our end, because we had basically the same model of platform that we were using. And what you see here is the project itself was students where we had different projects between different schools, very similar to what you were, what kind of was explaining earlier. But they did not have the technology of VR or immersive. So here's their way of introducing themselves. The wiki, each one of them had an individual wiki page where they would introduce themselves. So yes. It was cutting edge technology. Wrote my first email, right? So, no way, this is making a lot of noise. I apologize. An audio blog that was just a recording with an MP3, no cell phone recording, okay? And they would upload it. The teacher had to upload it because it was too technologically advanced for these fifth graders to be uploading. And I had to circle by using dictionaries, okay? So they had to go to real tactile dictionaries. At the time, there were very few references. When we wrote this chapter, and I'm pointing out some of the technology here as well, the MP3 recorders and narrative soundtracks that we have to upload. And they created a rap. The students created a rap to introduce themselves and introduce their towns. At the time, when we wrote the chapter, we could not find references about telecollaboration. We found about, I think it was 9 references on telecollaboration for this chapter. Okay, there were no examples to follow. We were going blind at it. We really had very few examples to try to figure it out. So just to show you, here's one of the class wiki pages where you had the raps and some images that they found, and we added. Teachers had to do this, and then you have no idea. For you young people, you have no idea how hard it was to embed these audios in with a link to this page. Okay, so that's a walk down back 20 years. So what were people saying to me? about the trend. Kids need to learn to read and write first before we throw technology at them. There were a few voices, that's interesting, I'd like to hear more. But mostly it was like, you're crazy. Why? Why are you doing this? And then a few years later, in 2010, when we introduced Second Life, we introduced it earlier, but we introduced it around 2007, with our teachers. We introduced Second Life. One of the teachers, this is on Zoho wiki page, if you remember Zoho. It's still around, but it's not nearly popular. I think that my teacher educator here said what the reason why. It says, in a world where technologies are evolving faster than ever, language teacher education, and I would say any teacher education, must help future teachers gain competence in the use of social media. We could replace that with technologies. This knowledge will be transferable. And even if a tool like Second Life is no longer relevant for them down the road, they have the experience and know how to adapt new, better tools. So that's the why. That's the why of bringing this in, even if it's trendy. Why are we doing VR? I know, Christy, it's the same question. What are you doing? And I want to say that Christy, Lady et al., we're answering this question about why use Second Life in 2011. So they were visionary. She called me innovative, talking about visionary. In 2011, they were using Second Life and they were publishing why it's important to use it. Second Life is not very big anymore. It's still out there. It's not nearly as popular as it used to be. So maybe you could say it was a flash in the pan. It was a trend. But look at where she is now. Look at where Kira is now. Is now with young kids using virtual reality. So they took a chance, they saw a vision, and they followed through. Remember, I said when we wrote that chapter, when we published the book, it came out in, I think, 2008, when we were writing the chapter earlier, when we wrote that chapter, we found 9 references on telecollaboration. Nowadays, there are entire conferences dedicated to telecollaboration, virtual exchange, COIL. You can find, Google it. Go to Uncle Google, as one of my students calls it, Uncle Google, and you will find thousands of articles on this under these different terms, geographically distanced collaborative exchange, international COIL. So you can find thousands of articles versus 20 years ago, you couldn't find even 10. There are books. There are a series of books. I am an editor of a series of books with Dr. Robert O'Dowd, in case someone has something interesting, plug that in, on telecollaboration and education, virtual exchange and education. There are websites, there are entire websites dedicated to finding virtual partners. There are keynote presentations in this very conference. There are presentations everywhere. There are even conferences that are dedicated to certain journals specializing in this field. So that's 20 years. 20 years. It's an important thing. So I dare say that I'm looking at my colleagues here that I consider to be pioneers in this. It's had an impact. 20 years. So I call it the ripple effect. I don't first it came to me as writing this talk. What can we do to have this ripple effect? Take grassroots initiatives. We can't be afraid of grassroots initiatives. Small individual actions or local grassroots initiatives often serve as that initial ripple in the pond. A single teacher, small group of teachers, and this is getting easier and easier with technology to be able to collaborate at a distance. From there, we built communities of practice where individuals begin to adopt and adapt these same successful practices and learning from each other. And this has then a social impact, social cultural shifts, because people start believing in it and they start asking their own schools for it. Why are you not doing this? Because, I've heard that this is popular and that this works. And that will inevitably have a wider societal influence. spread of ideas. So we have to be out there. We can't just be talking to the like what I'm doing right now. I'm preaching to the choir. We can't just be talking to like-minded people. We need to be getting out there and explaining what we're doing to the media. And that leads to upscaling. As ripples grow, we need to influence larger institutions. And that inevitably will have a global impact when the cross-border collaboration starts taking place. There are more things we can do to maximize the ripple effect. Network building, right here. Those talking circles yesterday, that's network building. So creating strong networks of individuals and organizations that share and support each other's efforts, right? Storytelling and advocacy. I think that's what's happening here. Getting out and telling the story of success, right? But it means giving talks outside of your comfort zone as well. It means talking to people who are not convinced, who don't really want to hear what you have to say. You need to be able to get to them as well. Looping, that means accepting feedback and criticism. That's what I mean by looping. You know, always looking back and looking at, okay, so this is working, but how can we improve? What can we build on? And what do we need to leave behind when it's not working? Provide proof. We can't be doing storytelling advocacy if we're not doing research on what we're doing and showing that it is solid and that it is research-based. But to get it out there, storytelling advocacy, we have to make it digestible, right? We have to make them be able to understand. We have to be able to speak the language of the communities we're trying to talk to. We can't just talk research talk. Doing mentoring, so supporting new activists. People who are coming into the community don't really know how to do it. Even if you're like, okay, I've been explaining this so many times, explain it again. You get tired of explaining sometimes because it's so for you, it's just obvious. But for someone who's new, it's not obvious what you're doing. So you need to be able to explain it. And the keynote yesterday, this teacher training, has got to be involved in that. And okay, it's philosophical, but it's also, I want to be optimistic and say, we have to believe every change begins with an unwavering conviction that it is possible. If she had not believed in Second Life when she started, she would have dropped it. She would have said, this is really hard because you run into a lot of problems along the way. It's not an easy path. But you got to believe, you got to have an unwavering conviction that it's going somewhere. So, I would like to show you a short clip. It's a 3-minute clip. I have time? Yes? Okay. 3-minute clip. I'm going to explain this to you. This is fresh off the presses. This is a virtual exchange, so collaborative effort between a school in Catalonia, not the same one to show with the headsets, a different school. By the way, both of those teachers that work with me now were they were both in the first or second version of telecollaborative class that I did 25 years ago, that they were learning about how to do virtual exchange, and now they're keen on technology and virtual exchange. So again, there is an example of 20 years, you can look back and say it happened. So this project is between a school in Catalonia and a school in Abuja, Nigeria. Okay? Briefly explain it, the teachers, they're the 4th graders, the teachers decided to talk about the sustainable development goals, they decided water conservation, because there was a drought, not in Nigeria, a drought in Catalonia. Okay, so it started out with a lot, and they also wanted to focus on the use of AI, how to introduce young students to AI, if they should introduce young students to AI or not. So we had to develop a special platform, child-friendly platform. So it was trying to only accept English, because the teacher said they'll figure it out and they'll start using other language. So it only accepted English, did not accept curse words, child-friendly language, kept it very ethically approved type of language. So they were using AI to work on this project to come up with campaigns for sustainable development. But before they started this, they had to do Mystery Classroom. Does anyone know Mystery Classroom? If you've done virtual change, probably do. But Mystery Classroom is where the teachers, it introduces the project. So we're going to do this beautiful collaborative project. It's going to be so much fun. But we're not going to tell you who your partner is. You have to guess who your partner is by asking them questions, right? So they did their first questions with AI. So here you're introducing geography, okay? So they're asking questions like, which continent are you? It can only be answered with yes, no questions, by the way, the mystery classroom. So they have to, are you in the North American continent? So do you have rivers? Do you have mountains? Do you have coastline, et cetera, et cetera? And so they did this without seeing each other, and they had to guess. They had to then had a video conference where they asked each other these questions. And then with the answers to these same questions, they had to just then try to guess, if they could, the city and the country. The Catalonian group did guess not only Nigeria, they got Abuja. They did an amazing moment. And then when they exchanged and said, are you from Nigeria? And they're like, yes, it was an explosion. Yeah, there was so much excitement. It's beautiful. It's recorded. So they had to play this mystery game. I'm explaining this because that's mentioned here in this clip, right? And I'll talk about other things that came out of that mystery classroom after we see this clip. This clip is the final day. As you can see, they're sitting in front of a computer, a screen. The Nigerian class is on the screen. This is in Catalonia. The local news came to film it. So you're going to see, what you're going to see is the local news. It's in Catalan, I'll put subtitles of what it said in English. You're going to see what how the local news reported this project. I hope it works.
Alumnes de quart de primària de l'Escola Sant Jordi de Mollet i un centre educatiu de Nigèria han fet un treball conjunt. L'objectiu ha estat conscienciar sobre la importància de l'estalvi de l'aigua, tot plegat a més utilitzant l'anglès com a idioma per comunicar-se. El resultat del treball han pogut veure els alumnes acompanyats de les seves famílies.
Amb aquesta cançó, cantada conjuntament pels alumnes de l'Escola Sant Jordi i estudiants d'una escola de Nigèria, s'ha posat punt final al projecte que tots dos centres han desenvolupat durant 3 mesos. La iniciativa volia tenir en compte diversos elements. Per un costat, analitzar la situació de sequera actual i plantejar solucions d'estalvi d'aigua.
Per exemple, quan esperem que perquè la dutxa es calenti, posar un cubell per a l'aigua freda i després reutilitzar-la. I què podríem fer, per exemple, a les comunitats de Catalunya o d'altres països, potser seria que poséssim més pous.
Per aquest projecte també s'ha treballat la utilització de la intel·ligència artificial.
Van treballar amb el ChatGPT, que li feien moltes preguntes sobre això del projecte de l'aigua i tot, per saber maneres per com reduir l'aigua.
El resultat han estat còmics com aquest i tot plegat mitjançant l'anglès com a llengua principal.
Fent un joc adivinant de què país i ciutat eren. Ha sigut molt divertit, i ha sigut molt original.
El projecte va començar fa 3 mesos i la cloenda s'ha fet amb la presència de les famílies dels alumnes. Tots han estat estudiants de quart de primària. En grups han desenvolupat diferents propostes per conscienciar sobre l'estalvi d'aigua.
Aquesta aventura que li vam dir Young Activist, on el nostre alumnat es va convertir en activistes petits però molta força, moltes ganes de fer coses noves i tenir un impacte a la societat i en el món actual que necessita de grans canvis i de grans accions.
Sempre s'han esforçat molt a parlar en anglès, tant amb mi com amb els nens de Nigèria, per tant hi ha aquest concepte de la comunicació en anglès, la competència comunicativa.
A l'acte també s'ha projectat una obra de teatre escrita als alumnes de Nigèria.
A l'escola sempre apostem per projectes innovadors i ens acompanya venint a sorgir aquesta oportunitat i vam pensar que era una oportunitat fantàstica pels nens i nenes.
Interpretes les presentacions, famílies i alumnes han deixat els seus missatges per la prosperitat en defensa de la conservació de l'aigua.
Well, I hope you could read. It was very fast because they talk very fast. So I had to get everything they said in the subtitles. So this is just an example of what we can see in the project between two schools: integration of technology and promoting digital literacy, artificial intelligence. They were having to learn to use it. They were also discovering things that in the discussions in the focus group of students later. They were saying, it wasn't so easy to get AI to answer what we wanted. And so they were learning how to get the correct prompts. There's discussions with them talking about how if we didn't get the right prompt, it didn't work. They were talking about how sometimes they found that other resources were more useful. The group that guessed Abuja, Nigeria, several of them guessed Nigeria. There were some groups that just said, no, it's Argentina. And they would not budge from there because each group had to make a decision about where they thought after getting the right answers. So the group that guessed Abuja, Nigeria used an atlas. They discarded the AI and went to an atlas, found that was more useful. And then they decided it was Abuja, and I said, why Abuja? And they said, because it's the capital. Yeah, because they found it in the atlas. It's not a question they could have asked with AI. It was an integrated effort. We're talking about how we have to get everyone involved. It's not just one individual teacher. It's not just the teachers involved. But I came in as part of the faculty of education, gave support for this. Also the administrators, we had to get them on board. We had to get the parents on board. Then we brought the mayor in. The mayor was excited about this. And in Nigeria, they had a minister, an environmental minister, come and listen to the students talk about their campaign. So spreading those ripple effects, right? Of course, there's multimodal learning. You can see that here. There was global connections and intercultural awareness. There was a point where the students, when they had to try to figure out which country they were, they said, it can't be Africa. And the teacher said, really, why? And he said, because they don't have technology. Okay, so they also said, when they saw people answering questions, when they were answering the questions, they came to the teacher and they said, can we talk about the color of skin? Is it okay to talk about the color of the skin? And led to this really rich discussion on how do we deal with different ethnicities and different aspects, physical aspects, and fourth graders. And then in the end, they took a picture with their hands. Beautiful picture, typical that you would see in, you might see it in the internet as sort of a meme. But they decided, look, we're all different colors as well. Our skin color is all different. And then they started talking about the fact that in Spanish, the crayon that is sort of white color is called flesh. Carne, color carne. Okay? It's called flesh color. And they're like, why is it called flesh when there's so many different colors of skin? So these were the type of conversations that emerged from doing this. They were spontaneous, but they emerged. It was responsive to changing needs, this changing social situations and needs. The drought was in Catalonia, not in Nigeria. Nigeria was saying, we don't have a drought. We don't have a problem. Why we're talking about this. They had to guess pictures. Where do you think these pictures are coming from? And there were pictures of just devastation, extremely dry areas. And they're all saying, Ethiopia, Sahara? No, it was Catalonia.
Wow.
Right? They didn't guess it. They're living it. They were living it and did not recognize it. So it was this impact of them understanding what was happening in their own environment. It also had an impact beyond the classroom, outward ripples. The parents became really deeply involved, and the parents were there. And I have to say, after that, during the teleconference, the last video conference, the teacher said, okay, any of the teachers want to say something to the Nigerian students? And a couple of the parents, they don't speak English, right? So a couple of them got up and came out and in quite broken English said, thank you for sharing with my students. And so they even got the parents involved in speaking to the students from Nigeria. It was social and emotional learning. I think we've given a lot of examples of this, and it was inclusive. And I have to give this last story, and I hope I don't tear up when I tell this. There was a young boy who had special needs. In his 4th year, never participated in anything in the classroom. It was known he had his own special monitor with him. She accompanied him all the time, his personal accompaniment, all the way through the classes. He participated in every activity project. And when they had to introduce themselves and ask questions, so what you've got to remember as well, I forgot to mention this, in Nigeria there were 7 students, in Catalonia there were 50. Managing that, the teacher you saw there, she's excellent. Just a miracle worker. So all 50 students are sitting on the floor and she says, who wants to ask the first question? And this young boy that never participates in anything, just little hand shot up and said, I do. And he came up and asked the first question. The monitor who works with him had to leave the room because she started crying. Oh. She said, I've never seen it before. So inclusive, there's ways to do it. And the project yesterday, she was saying, you know, students are engaged, they're motivated because there's a purpose to do this, right? So I think that that's a very good example of how we can make an impact, starting with that little ripple. The one, so turning our binoculars back to the future, what can we do to ensure empowerment for all? I don't have the answer. I really don't. I wish I did, I don't, but I do believe, and that was the last word I used in these adjectives, these action points that we can actually perhaps do. I do believe that it starts with us. It starts with conferences like this. It starts with us beginning to make our own small impact, our own ripple. Because if we don't believe that we can do it, then it's not going to happen. We're just going to sit back, cross our arms, and say there's nothing we can do. There's always going to be pitfalls, and there's always going to be problems and difficulties, and maybe we don't get that equity that we're striving for and everything, but we can make a difference. We really can make a difference. So with that, thank you. In case you're interested, these are the references.